Did you know that when you make choices, it affects other people? I know it sounds easy to comprehend, but when you are a pastor, when you are called to the pastor's life, that dynamic is multiplied in many ways with many people. And that's why the pastor's life and the pastor's calling is so important and is so vital and has such influence, because when you make a choice, when you say something, it affects a lot of people, whether you know it or not. You become a rudder for other people. And you may not even know that that's the role you're playing, but what you say, how you say it, when you show up, the life that you lead becomes a lodestar. It becomes a rudder. It becomes a direction, a referent for many, many people. Those that report to you, those that listen to you, and even those that don't. Whether it's a diet of your sermons over the course of 5 or 10 years, or whether it's a momentary encounter, when you say something, when you do something, you influence others. And that's part of the significance and the sobering burden of being called to pastoral leadership. So it's a heavy responsibility, it's a significant weight, but it's a joyful opportunity to bring God's kingdom into those moments. We find this true in the first chapter of Mark, as we walk through Mark, outlining various dimensions of the pastor's life. We come to this section beginning with verse 40 where Jesus is dialoguing with the leper. And the leper says, if you choose to do something, I know that it will happen. And Jesus makes a choice. And he says, I choose, be made whole. I choose. That's the same pattern that salts your life day in and day out. As you make choices, as you speak, you influence people. Now, I want you to understand that power is not based on a position. You see, people watch you and give you influence, and they start from a posture of trust because they know that you are a man of the cloth or a woman of the cloth, or they know that you are a woman called to pastoral ministry, or that somehow you are a very spiritual person. You see, they have this idea that as a pastor, you have some wisdom, you have insight, you have thought, and you have a spiritual connection, so to speak. So they give you this influence, but that influence, although there is, that influence really comes from your life, not your position. Although there is constituted authority that comes from the position that you're given organizationally in the life of your church, that's way down on the priority list. That's a very minimal amount of influence. The real influence that you carry comes from your life. Remember the bottom of the iceberg? Yeah. It comes from your life, your personhood, your nature, your calling. And that is not constituted authority. It's not because you hold the title or you hold the position, but it comes out of who you are. Recognize that. And from that from that understanding, realize that everything you say will influence other people. Later on, you'll find that there are people who will come back to you and they will say, when you said so-and-so or such and such, that changed my life. That affected the course of my life. Because you have that influence and your choices make a difference. Every word, every choice you make will either bring flourishing to the life of others, or it will bring bondage and death to their life. One finds its source in recognizing your role as a channel through which God can effect God's vision for the life of others. The other finds its source in your own ambition and selfishness. When you make decisions, when you speak out of proposing or perpetuating your agenda, that's the kind of choice and influence that brings death and hurt and bondage. But when you recognize the burden of God's call to the pastor's life upon you, and you become that surrendered servant through which God's kingdom can flow through you to other people, then the words and the choices you make influence them for their good. I remember in my own life various times this has happened to me, and I didn't even know it. There came a point a few years ago where a young man that had been in an event where I was speaking, he came to me and he said, "You know, what you said in that event changed my life, and I am now answering the call of God to pastoral ministry, moving into seminary, changing his location, and today oversees a large number of churches." I had no idea that was happening. But he was at an event overseas where I was speaking about complete surrender and the things that I was talking about, and even meeting with him and encouraging him in engaging. Those were the moments where his life was altered. I became a rudder for his life that set him on a new course. And I know you have countless stories in your own life of those kinds of moments happening. I just want to call out the reality that in the pastor's life, your influence out of who you are becomes a rudder that directs the lives of people and can change the trajectory of their course. As you contemplate and as you think about the assignment of your own journal, can I encourage you to personalize this by praying and remembering when someone else's choice altered the direction of your own life? And then secondly, think about a moment when perhaps your choice, your word, altered the life of someone else, and you were the rudder that directed them. And may God bless you in your prayerful reflection.